I've grown up with the wild. Every summer our family headed to our cottage in Algonquin Park in the Canadian Shield country of Northern Ontario. That's me on the left with a face mask with my brothers and cousin. And each spring, as soon as the ice was off the lakes, Dad would take us on a week-long canoe trip into the back country of Algonquin Park, fishing for speckled trout. That's my dad, sister and brother, and me in the stern, about to head out. Later on, we did a 3-week paddle down the Nahanni River, and its magic pivoted my attention to the mountains of the west. There was no way then I could know just how much those early experiences with the wild would shape my life. But in 1989, when the opportunity came along for my wife and I to live on a forested island just northwest of Vancouver in Squamish Nation territory, we jumped at it. As you approach Bowen Island, or Nex wlélex as it's known to the Squamish peoples, it appears to be one big forest, houses sprinkled only along shore and valley. And that is pretty much how it is. In my early days on the island, its woods were my quick escape to the wild. And though the island had been logged in the late 1800s, relative to the Ontario woodlands of my youth, its forests of towering cedar and fir, chest-high fern, and damp smells were intoxicating. Giant stumps spoke of the ancient forests that once were, while charred remains reminded me that even rainforests can burn. And hidden here and there were giants that had dodged both logger and fire. Forests are dominated by their plants and hide their animal dwellers well, but every once in a while I'd get a peek at who was living there. It was usually when I paused, sat quietly, and listened, and the forest resumed its daily business. None of the animals were too unusual to my Ontario eyes, except for the slugs, whose determined progress across the forest floor I just had to admire. I'd grown up with a paddle in my hand, so I was quick to get out on the water and explore the nearby ocean. I got myself a kayak and, wow, found a rich and fantastic world of seals and sea stars, otters and marine birds. Nothing here looked like Algonquin Park. All of it brand new to me, as exciting as heck. But looking back, as good as it wasn't the ocean of today. What I didn't understand when we first arrived was what was missing from the ocean. No whales, few orca and sea lion. There hadn't been a humpback whale in Átl'ka7tsem Howe Sound for 80 years. The whalers harpooned the last of them in 1908. Even worse, the sound had been hit hard by a century of toxic mine and pulp mill waste. But public outrage had been brewing for a decade, and the Save Howe Sound Society and many others demanded the pollution stop. Prodded by public fury, the government brought in stricter regulations. During the 1990s and early 2000s, the pulp mills either cleaned up or shut down, and the toxic runoff from the old copper mine treated. What followed was nothing less than miraculous. With the ocean healthier, the cornerstone of our marine ecosystem, herring, came back. With herring to eat, humpback whales came into the inlet to feed. Because ever since we'd stopped killing them in the mid-1970s, humpback whales had been slowly regaining their former territory, including the Salish Sea. The recovery was stunning. Before 2010, sightings of whales and dolphins in Howe Sound had been less than 10 a year. By 2018, it was over 300 a year. This surge electrified us all, from Squamish to West Vancouver and Gibsons to Bowen, flooding us with a determination that Howe Sound's health was worth fighting for. Fueled by that, a lot of hard work led to the designation in 2021 of Átl'ka7tsem Howe Sound as a UNESCO Biosphere region. The whales had inspired the way. We got our share of whales right around Bowen. But there was other excitement too. In 2016, we had the best salmon run in 20 years. Chum salmon filled the mouth of Clarny Creek, our island's biggest stream. The salmon amazed us. Their abundance, their grit, laying their eggs right before our eyes. With the salmon came so much other life. Some hunting the salmon, others the salmon eggs. Many came to feed on the spawned out carcasses. All this was a wake-up call for me. We truly are with the wild on Bowen Island. And the more attention I paid to Bowen, the more I found. Along the island's west shore, I came upon great schools of silvery fish, anchovy. Anchovy are the southern, warmer water cousins of herring, and historically only occasional visitors to the Salish Sea. But from 2015 on, they spawned in Howe Sound, probably because of the warming ocean. Their oily meat, like that of herring, is jet fuel for whales, sea lions, seals, and salmon. And wherever the anchovy went, a flurry of feeding followed. My favorite happened in Deep Bay, the busiest anchorage on our island. I paddled up to a chaos of gulls, and when I lowered my camera in, it caught a most magnificent dance. A pack of seals and a lone sea lion were hunting a silvery school in what appeared more ballet than attack. To have this underway in the midst of our busy boats and homes reinforced once again for me that other species were making a living on Bowen too. We humans had moved into their neighborhood. The anchovy brought in not just whales, but sea lion too. For my first 25 years on Bowen, I hardly saw a sea lion. But since the arrival of anchovy in 2015, sea lions have become regular springtime visitors. They thrill me, arriving in herds to hunt anchovy, corralling the silvery fish into bays where they're easier to catch. They're massive animals, 3 or more times the size of seals, energetic, noisy, and gregarious. For years, sea lions, like whales, were hunted on the BC coast. When the killing ended in the mid-1960s, sea lion numbers rebounded throughout the Salish Sea. This reveals a simple truth. Stop killing nature, and it'll bounce back. After I got a kayak, the next big step was getting a wetsuit. As a kid, I loved my face mask. Snorkeling is a ticket to an alternate universe. Nothing down there looks anything like what's above surface. And there, tight to shore in just a few feet of water, I found a rich and miniature world of astonishing creatures. And snorkeling provides a wonderful benefit. It allows me to float harmlessly above, nose close, watching their daily lives, but without causing the damage my curious feet do when I walk the low-tide shore. But this busy shoreline world has taken some hard hits recently, early warning signals from a heating planet, and it's been painful to watch. In 2013, there was a massive die-off of sea stars due to a coast-wide wasting disease. Though our purple and other sea stars have recovered since, our largest, the sunflower sea star, has all but vanished. The loss of this voracious predator had big consequences. There was an explosion in the number of green sea urchins that the sea stars had feasted on. Since then, urchins have devoured many kelp beds that were a rich home for marine life, leaving behind desolate barrens of urchins. Then came the killing heat dome of 2021, when a June atmospheric oven caught our shores just when they're most vulnerable, during extreme low tides. Baked in the cooking sun for hours, billions and billions of tiny intertidal creatures perished. But our shores have had good news as well. Eelgrass, a native seagrass, grows in the underwater shallows of island bays. These seagrass beds are vital nurseries for crabs, small fish, and juvenile salmon. But out of sight beneath the waves, we unknowingly damage seagrass with boat anchors. So in jumped the Sea Change Marine Conservation Society, and for several years partnered with our community to restore injured eelgrass. We prepared transplants, the divers dug into damaged areas. Since then, the municipality has created no anchoring areas to protect the eelgrass, asking boaters to moor in deeper water beyond where the eelgrass lives. This was a really big lesson. Working to restore our eelgrass taught us how empowering and energizing it is to come together as a community to help repair nature. In a world of many losses, our wins are important. Snorkeling Bowen shores eventually got me to take a look at the lagoon. The lagoon was once an ocean inlet, where the island's biggest stream flows to the sea. But the causeway, built in the 1920s, dams its waters, creating a brackish lagoon. The big surprise in the lagoon was the algae forest, sparkling with bubbles, that reveal that the algae is a huge oxygen factory. Our forests are too. We just can't see the oxygen as it's produced. Within that forest swim schools of spiny stickleback fish, so interesting to watch as they hunt for tiny little critters. And the lagoon exploration got me looking upstream too. I was immediately surprised to meet crayfish. I didn't even know they lived on the island. And all around, small cutthroat trout danced in the current. Clearly, a stream isn't just flowing water. It's a home filled with life. Intrigued, I headed upstream. And that got me paying attention to perhaps our island's most influential wild neighbor, beavers. For a decade or so, I've watched beavers re-engineer Killarney Creek, building dams and converting shadowy forests to sunlit marshes and ponds, creating one of the richest wildlife habitats on the island. I often go to the bridge over the creek to peer into this marsh world. This summer, the driest in my memory, I was standing there watching an otter, and I was particularly thankful to the beaver. The marshes had been full of water right through the long summer drought, supporting so much other life. This beaver engineering is a blessing to so many. But beaver are largely nocturnal, so to catch them at work, I began to visit Killarney Lake at dusk, where there are several active lodges. I watched them as they started their day, feeding heavily on the lake's pond lilies. But it seems they wait to do their engineering in full darkness. I could see their recent efforts, but never caught them at work. And by summer they were trying to raise the dam at the lake too. While watching the beaver, I got a glimpse of how rich the lake was with life. Curious, I started midday visits too. I've walked around the lake hundreds of times, but I confess I've never given the lakeshore marshes my full attention. So I picked a lakeshore log and sat. At first, all seemed quiet. And then I saw the dragonflies flitting about, hunting bugs, laying eggs. Every once in a while, they paused nearby. As I watched, I noticed how busy the lily marsh was with other bugs and stickleback fish, hovering, darting. Then I looked up and there was a wood duck mom with her family feeding right there in the shallows. So much going on. As the drought dragged on and on this summer, the expanding mudflats and shrinking lake made plain that our climate breakdown was changing the rules of nature, the rules for nature. At the same time, we had everyone's worries about wildfire on the island. And the tragic stories that flooded in of fire, deluge, and cyclone from so many places around our struggling planet were hard to bear. So much is coming at us so fast, and coming at the wild inhabitants that we share this island with. So it was reassuring to see the new gateway mural, painted by community members young and old, that is a greeting to those arriving. It says that nature matters to many of us, many, many of us. That we're proud of our forests, our shores, our sea. They define how we see ourselves. Being a part of this wild place, living with the wild, is who we are. We lean on nature in many ways. Our wild is such a gift for kids to know and explore. I've wished many times I'd been a kid on Bowen. What a place to grow up. We need a vision. With our climate in crisis, biodiversity in freefall, what do we want for our island's nature? A decade, 2 decades out. Our island's alive with life. Forest, deer, mink, butterfly, merganser, these are our kin. To work on their behalf excites me. Living beings all around us need us, as we need them. I recall powerful words. The future does not exist. We are making it in the present with the things we do or fail to do. Let's get at it.